game. Don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Hope everyone had a good Halloween. Really enjoyed myself. Got opportunity to take my son Paxton trick-or-treating. My wife and myself, we took him around the neighborhood. He wanted us all to dress as PJ Masks, one of his favorite superheroes right now. So we all, got the PJ Masks costume, and we were walking around the neighborhood, and it's always fun, man. Anybody that has kids like around 4 or 5 years old, man, it's probably the best times ever right there. So took them trick-or-treating, had a really good time. Didn't do a show on yesterday on YouTube, but there's a show that's available right now on HNSN that's available for you this week's episode of the State of the Saints podcast. But on this edition, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Saints not making a trade before the trade deadline. And you have Saints fans that are kind of mixed when it comes to their thoughts and views on the Saints making a trade or aggressively trying to make a trade before the deadline. Of course, yesterday, if you're listening to this live on a Wednesday, Tuesday was the very last day of a team can actually make a trade. And we've seen some pretty blockbuster trades that took place. I think the one that really took everybody back was the San Francisco 49ers trade with the Washington Commanders for Chase Young, the number 2 overall pick a couple of years ago. He goes along with his former teammate at Ohio State, Nick Bosa. So now you basically had what Ohio State had and why they were dominant for the last couple of years on each side. And it just seems like the rich are getting richer, even though the San Francisco 49ers have dropped 3 straight. They still seem to always find themselves in a positive situation. They got Randy Gregory a couple of weeks ago, and now you add that to Chase Young, and then last year they brought in Christian McCaffrey. I just don't understand it. Maybe y'all understand it better than me, but I just don't get how all these big market teams always seem to get these blockbuster acquisitions. Like you see Philly doing it all the time. You see San Francisco doing it all the time. Like, it just seems like it'd be the same teams. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if it's just the small market teams aren't being aggressive enough. I just don't understand it. First off, how do they get the money to do these things? And number 2, how is it that the same teams always seem to get the best players? I just don't get it. It seems like, I don't know. I'll let you figure that out. But all in all, the New Orleans Saints did not make any trades. The only trade that we heard about was the Saints trying to acquire Hunter Renfrow, but they could not reach an agreement with the Raiders. Number one, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If the New Orleans Saints spent most of their time yesterday trying to go after Hunter Renfrow, I'm very, very concerned about this organization as a staff organization and crew, because there's no way on God's green earth you look at what you have offensively and just look to yourself and say, you know what? I think Hunter Renfrow will add to what we're actually doing. First off, the New Orleans Saints just found offense 2 or 3 weeks ago. So why in the hell are you out here trying to go after Hunter Renfrow? I mean, honestly, Hunter Renfrow is doing absolutely nothing in Las Vegas right now. And honestly, if you were to add him to the team, I still feel like he would be doing absolutely nothing. The New Orleans Saints have a bunch of playmakers who they haven't even allowed to touch the ball yet. Like, seriously. I mean, we talk about how They haven't been using Juwan Johnson. They haven't really been using Chris Olave in certain ways. Rashid Shaheed only got about 3 touches. Michael Thomas. They're just starting to figure out how to use their offensive weapons, or a few of them. Now all of a sudden you want to add Hunter Renfrow in there. When I think about some of the issues that plagued the New Orleans Saints, and yes, the problems have been offensively, but here's the reality. It wasn't because of the lack of talent that they possess. It was the execution of the offense. It had absolutely nothing to do with it. I didn't look at Chris Olave and say we got the wrong guy. Michael Thomas, we don't have the right guy. Alvin Kamara, we don't have the right guy. If you spent the majority of this trade deadline trying to go after a wide receiver, then somebody seriously needs to be fired, because everybody knows that the New Orleans Saints, if they need any type of help whatsoever, they need it on the defensive line, because they are not getting as much pressure as you need in order for you to disrupt the quarterback. No disrespect to Cam Jordan, no disrespect to Cano Passanio, but here's the reality. The defensive line of the New Orleans Saints, out for the exception of Carl Granderson, has been lackluster. And that's just the reality. If you are going to make it to the next level, if you are going to make it to the playoffs and make a deep run, you need pass rushers. And I don't understand why the New Orleans Saints didn't spend most of that time trying to go after Chase Young. If the Saints would have spent most of their time, if I would have seen, a report saying the Saints tried to go after Danielle Hunter, the Saints tried to go after Chase Young, then I can be like, hey, you know what? This team has their priorities together. They're trying to go for it. But you're spending most of your time trying to go after Hunter Renfrow for what? And to be quite honest with you, we all know where it comes from. We know where it comes from. It's to appease Derek Carr, rolling out the red carpet, trying to make him happy, trying to make him content. This has absolutely nothing to do with the betterment of the team. I'm not sitting here thinking, man, boy, we definitely be a Super Bowl contender if we bring in Hunter Renfrow. You got to be out your freaking mind. This tells me everything that I need to know. Like, this team is so far away from reality till it ain't even funny. If you're spending most of your time trying to go after a wide receiver, one of the main positions on your team that's stacked, right? I mean, even if somebody like Chris Olave or Michael Thomas goes down, you still have A.T. Perry out there who has a lot of promise, and a lot of people consider him as a guy that can be a future pass catcher for the foreseeable future for the New Orleans Saints. So why in the world are you spending your time doing this? I have absolutely no idea. The fact that the New Orleans Saints decided not to go in this direction tells me 2 different things. Number one, they're not really content about what the future holds for the New Orleans Saints. Because, look, everybody, you can say whatever you want, but if the New Orleans Saints would have came out yesterday and we would have heard the Saints have made a trade for Chase Young and they gave up the 2nd-round pick that the Denver Broncos gave them, who in the Who Dat Nation would be upset? Absolutely nobody. Nobody would be upset about that whatsoever. The Saints' lack of aggression, to me, speaks volumes. It tells me that they're going to do some reevaluating at the end of the season. This seems like this is going to be one of those years that we all been waiting for, Who Dat Nation, the year where the Saints decide if Dennis Allen is the right guy for the job. The Saints not moving or trying to relinquish a draft pick really just tells me that they want to make sure that if they do go in a different direction, it sets itself up for a better situation for their new head coach. Now, this could be one of those situations if Dennis Allen decides that he's going to have a good run at this and they win some games and make a playoffs. Maybe the Saints will bring him back again. But regardless, I feel like the Saints not being as aggressive when you know for a fact that you need a pass rusher to be able to help you defensively, the fact that they felt like it wasn't really necessarily a need or they did not pull the trigger just tells me that maybe they're going to be reevaluating things at the end of the season, which they should. Look, I know we're all excited about the Colts' victory and the Saints putting up 511 total yards in that game. But look, it's going to take a lot more than going up against 2 special teams quarterbacks in the Indianapolis Colts, because that's what they had out there, for me to actually buy into what the Saints are actually doing this season. because we all know that the New Orleans Saints are the epitome of smoke and mirrors. For the last couple of years, they have been the epitome of the Jedi mind trick. They will continue to get our hopes up at what we're actually seeing on the field. We see it get put together for 60 minutes, and then all of a sudden, they go out the next week and they just fall flat on their face. Consistency is the key. So that is what I'm looking at. And that's why I feel like you should be looking at. The New Orleans Saints not making a move may be something that's telling us that maybe they're going to be reevaluating things in the future. And I have absolutely no problem with this. The name of the game is consistency. The name of the game is success. But I will say this also. There are two different types of teams. There are teams that are just content and that are excited about having a relevant product that people can congregate and go into their stadiums and yell to the top of their lungs, and concession is rolling and merchandise is rolling, and they're content with that. And as long as they put a winning product on the field, they don't have to make the playoffs every year. As long as the money keep rolling in, we cool. But then you have other cases where you have teams that are not content with just being 500. That's not just being content with making the playoffs. They want to win the whole doggone thing. And that's the teams like the Eagles. And those are the teams like the 49ers who aggressively try to go after the best players possible, who are not just sitting there trying to wallow in mediocrity. Teams that are not just trying to sit up there and just be relevant. They are trying to be relevant, but they're trying to win it all. And I'm just wondering to myself, what category do the New Orleans Saints fall in? Because to me, I feel like there's a level of arrogance about themselves that kind of makes me wonder, like, how in the world can you be this arrogant? Yes, you've had success, but the two people that gave you the most success is not with the team anymore. Drew Brees is not there. Sean Payton is not there. A lot of these guys are layovers, and they felt like they was the ones coaching when they was winning the championships. Yes, you were a supporting cast, okay? You have Drew Brees and Sean Payton. They were Carl Winslow and Steve Urkel. Like Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael were more like Waldo and Weasel. For those that may not know, I'm talking about, look it up. Watch Family Matters. The reality is the main characters in this show are no longer there. But the Saints are moving as if these guys in the organization has done something. If you are going to be a contender, you have to make sure that you're doing everything within your power to put forth the best product possible. And these guys don't have enough skins on the wall, and we don't have enough patience with these guys in order for them to be lackadaisical or just sitting up there just acting as if they got the championship in the bag. Once again, some people may be blinded by what they saw in Indianapolis, but I'm not. We all know, once again, this is the most inconsistent team in football, and to be quite honest with you, because there is not a team out there for the most part that you can just look at on paper and say, man, this is a legit contender, only for them to fall flat on their face no matter what they put out there. So you have to continue to try to find ways to get better. And if you're not trying to find ways to get better, and if you feel so arrogant, because that's how I think they feel, when you got this level of arrogance about yourself that nobody can tell you anything and you got it all handled, look what I did in the past means absolutely nothing. If you still living in the past, then you might be a Dallas Cowboy fan, or you just delusional, point blank, period. Well, if you're a Cowboy fan, living in the past, delusional is pretty much the same thing. But the Saints are delusional if they feel like they got enough skins on the wall with what they have in this organization right now for anybody not to question what they do. If you're spending the majority of your time going after a slot receiver that, honestly, if you add to this team, would just be another guy that you're scratching your head trying to figure out how you're going to use them in the offense. If you spent the majority of your time doing that, then who that nation, I don't stutter when I say this, we have the wrong people in charge. If that's how you spent the trade deadline, you got the wrong people in charge. Because there's not a member of the Who That Nation looks at this wide receiver group and say, dang, if we had Hunter Renfrow, we really gonna be on top. We up here talking about if they can give Rashid Shaheed more than 3 touches. Come on, man. What are we doing? Let me read some of your comments. Says fire Loomis, both Dennis Carmichael and all the 2014 Raiders coaching staff that was brought here. Well, I will say this. Look, when it comes to Marcus Robinson, I don't have a problem with the secondary coach because we all know last year the New Orleans Saints, they lacked in that department, getting turnovers. Now we're seeing guys, attacking the football, almost coming down with interceptions. The Saints should have had at least 3 interceptions last week. Ugo Amadi dropped the one at the end of the game. Marshawn Lattimore almost had one. And you also had Paulson Adebo. So I think, to me, Marcus Robinson is doing an outstanding job working with the secondary. And Joe Woods is as well. He's the defensive coordinator, even though we know that Dennis Allen calls the plays. I don't have an issue with some of the newer guys that they brought in, but at the same time, I do feel like when it comes to P. Carmichael, Dennis Allen, and Mickey Loomis, they're the guys that everybody is looking at because this team isn't looking right now. But we also know that because these guys have they have a lot of skins on the wall. They've been with the organization for a long period of time. It might be hard for a guy, executive like Dennis Lauscher and Gail Benson to let these guys go. That's why I'm saying, like, they would probably have conversations with these individuals, Carmichael, Loomis, and Allen, behind the scenes, and ask them to step down to save them the embarrassment of saying they're being fired. I feel like that's the direction they're going to go in. First off, I feel like regardless of how your offense looks for the rest of the year, you move on from P. Carmichael. I pretty much think that this is P. Carmichael's swan song. He's trying to save face a little bit by helping this offense. And maybe, because the offense starts to heat up a little bit, he can go somewhere else and get another job without people just wondering why did they hire P. Carmichael. But regardless, this guy needs to be gone. I don't care what he put together. I don't care because we know that it's not going to be consistent. We know the main reason why you're seeing this improvement, to me, and I could be wrong, and some people may just say, oh, TJ, you're just being a hater. But if you're a professional and you had 10 days to prepare for a team, look, you better be able to attack them. You better be able to exploit them. You better be able to put up some points, because if the Saints didn't put up points after a 10-day layover, I would have been concerned. My biggest concern when it comes to P. Carmichael is consistency. What happens when we're not saying anything about you? What happens when the people are saying your praises? What happens then? Do you revert back to why we were arguing in the first place, or do you continue to double down on the success you've had offensively? And we've seen this before. We've seen the New Orleans Saints put up a masterclass offensively under P. Carmichael one week, and then the next week it's like they forgot how to play football. Too inconsistent for me. Seriously. This is one of those situations where I feel like if you keep a guy like Pete Carmichael on, you keep a coach and Dennis Allen on, we're going to continue to have the same conversations. Why is it that they played great last week, but they played like slaw this week? I honestly, I don't know what the New Orleans Saints have to see at the end of the season. I feel like it should be the same situation with Josh McDaniel, another guy who was a really good coordinator, not a really good head coach. So I got to applaud the Raiders for leading by example, by not wanting to wallow in mediocrity and understand what they have is not going to work. So I think that you need to have a conversation at the end of the season. I don't know about you, but I pretty much seen enough, and I don't care. Like, honestly, I don't care what this offense look like. I still do not believe that the New Orleans Saints should retain Pete Carmichael at the end of the season, because it's too much of, hey, man, come over here. Let me show you how to do this. Hey, man, you slacking, bro. Hey, man, like too much of that. Too much of that for me. Jerry G, I could care less about trades. This franchise as a whole is just on the brink of falling apart. I don't want to say they're on the brink of falling apart. I just think that they had a false sense of reality of who they actually were, right? I mean, it's almost like one of those situations where you're around something so long that you feel like it's a part of your DNA, right? It's almost like that, it's like somebody, holding you up or bracing you up, but you're acting as if you're walking on your own 2 feet. And that's what I feel like when it comes to the Saints. The Saints had Sean Payton and Drew Brees all these years, and those guys, they pretty much covered up for the ineptitude of this organization, rather it be players that weren't very good, offensive line play that was suspect, wide receiver play that was suspect. You had Drew Brees out there that was a general that was able to basically beat a cologne on the musty body. He was the one that made everything look good. No matter if your defense was middle of the pack, no matter if your defense couldn't stop a nosebleed one year, you knew that number 9 was going to go out there and put up numbers and give people something to be excited about and give them a chance to win. And you also had a head coach who was able to scheme offensively and come up with a game plan on a week-by-week basis to make you a contender. And it's just like any other organization that you see. We've seen this before. We've seen it back in the late 80s, early 90s with Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones. When he hired, I'm talking Jerry Jones, when he hired Jimmy Johnson and they started to win, he started feeling, I'm talking Jerry Jones, started feeling like it was him that was actually the one pulling the strings and winning and everything, right? But Jimmy was the one that was putting the team together. Jimmy was the one that was putting the players in place. But Jerry Jones felt like it was him. And he lets go Jimmy Johnson. And yes, he brings in, another head coach, Barry Switzer. And yeah, they win another Super Bowl, but they never win anything else after that. Right? Why? Because probably Jerry Jones should have just swallowed his pride and let Jimmy Johnson continue to coach the team. But of course he didn't. This is one of those situations where I feel like when it comes to Mickey Loomis, he feels like he was the one that hired Sean Payton, which is true. He was the one that, signed off on Drew Brees, signing with the New Orleans Saints, giving Drew Brees another contract with the New Orleans Saints, and so on and so forth. So he feels like I'm the one that was in the kitchen, right? I'm the one that put the ingredients together. But hey, bro, at the same time, this is Ratatouille right now, right? I mean, you had that chef. Anybody ever seen the Pixar movie Ratatouille? The chef was the one that was, thinking like everybody was thinking that the chef was the one that was doing everything, but it was actually Ratatouille, the rat that was actually cooking up the meal, right? So he started, and at a certain point, the chef started to feel himself a little bit, right? Oh, it is me, but it ain't, Mickey Loomis starting to feel himself. He think that was him, but it ain't. And now we're seeing it. And I just think that you have to swallow your freaking pride and realize that, hey, man, look, I know we, made magic and we were successful and all that kind of stuff, but maybe it's time to move on. I think that the Saints have a false sense of reality of who they actually are post Drew Brees and Sean Payton. And now we're seeing it because we realize how special Drew Brees was as a player. And like him or not, we see how good Sean Payton was as a head coach. I don't feel like anybody would be here with this type of confidence if it wasn't for Sean Payton and Drew Brees. You may not like Sean Payton right now, the way he left, but let's keep let's call a spade. The majority of you would not be here with this type of confidence in the team if it wasn't for Sean Payton. Because Sean Payton gave the New Orleans Saints a winning culture, gave you something to cheer for, and gave you something to appreciate. And because you appreciated and loved it all those years, you're fighting for those magic moments again. And you're up in here trying to figure out how can we get back to that magic. That magic doesn't exist without Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Remember that. TJ, some people got eyes and can't see. Yeah, I mean, but I can understand that, right? Man, it's almost like, if you sing in background, and your group wins a Grammy, right? Even though you never led a song, you still a part of it. You know what I'm saying? You still part of those vocals. You still harmonizing, right? So you still feel like you're a big part of the team, even though, everybody kind of loves the front man. So maybe they feel like, oh, well, the front man wants to go solo. Yeah, let him go solo. We can bring somebody else in and we'll be fine. We'll still be the same group. No, you won't. Like you are not the same group. People that like New Edition, when Johnny Gill came, the group was different from when Ralph Tresvant was singing lead. You know what I'm saying? So it's different regardless. I mean, they sound good, you know, but they didn't generate the level of success they did when they had Johnny Gill. I mean, they had a few hits, but it wasn't hitting like when Ralph Tresvant was up in there, you know. When Bobby Brown was off in that joint, it's not the same. You know, you may call your group New Edition. You may call your team to do all the Saints, but they ain't playing like the Saints we love. You know, let's see. The solution to the Saints' issues is drafting a younger, more talented quarterback and a better core of coaches. You can't win on the highest level with Carr or James. Well, look, here's the thing. To be quite honest with you, if you have a really good head coach, you can win with these guys, right? Because a coach, a real coach, is going to understand his quarterback's tendencies, his strengths and weaknesses, and he's going to cover up for that. Case in point, the San Francisco 49ers. I know we've been talking about them since the show began because most of the time, you know, for the most part, they won the trade. You know, I mean, they won the trade news, right, when it comes to Chase Young. But the San Francisco 49ers, they do a really good job at protecting their quarterbacks, understanding the strengths and surrounding him with a supporting cast to to not make those weaknesses so obvious. Like when you think about Brock Purdy, he's surrounded by guys like George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuels, right? All you got to do is just get these guys the ball and they can do the rest. That's what great coaches do. That's what good coaches do. You can win with this, right? But you have to be able to put pieces around them. And that's a combination of head coach and general manager. The head coach that can be the visionary and the general manager to be able to go out there and get the ingredients to cook the meal. It takes that, right? So I think you can win with this, but just not what the Saints have right now. Because we've seen on countless occasions when Dennis Allen goes up against coaches that are well-defined, really good, borderline great, he gets out-coached. Like coaches that's been around for a minute, he gets out-coached. And I don't care how talented your team is, eventually the game is going to come down to scheming and coming up with a game plan down the stretch in situational football. It's going to come down to it. And with this, I don't feel like the Saints have what it takes because they don't have the coach and coordinator and Pete Carmichael to be able to coach some of the things that Derek Carr lacks in, you know, and amplify some of the strengths that he have enough to the Saints can actually run away with this division. I mean, this pretty much should tell you with a weak schedule, the Saints still manage to stay lock in step with mediocrity. And that doesn't happen with great head coaches. That doesn't happen with really good head coaches. I mean, yes, the New Orleans Saints have to execute, the players have to execute, but how many times are we going to see, no matter who you bring out here, the team pretty much looking the same? Up and down, no matter who you put out there, pretty much look pedestrian. Players that with all pro potential, should be top 5 offensively, can't get the football. Like, come on, man, what are we doing here? Like, we just wasting our time. You're not like you'll get games like how you did in Indianapolis, but you're not going to get that every week. I remember the Bum Phillip years. I think a lot of people, remember that, the OGs in here. TJ got me cracking up. Brighton Fam Day with the words you use. What if the Bears come to the Dome and eke out a win? Well, if they come out here and eke out a win, man, I hate to sound like this, but would you be surprised? I'm just, look, man, I don't want to sugarcoat with nobody. I know if people be thinking that I'll just be saying this stuff just to try to get, people to react, but I don't. How many people on here, like, be serious. You feel both ways, and you're well within your rights to feel this way. If the Saints go out here and lose to Chicago, you will not be surprised. If the Saints go and beat Chicago, you wouldn't be surprised. I honestly do not know what I'm going to get from week to week from the New Orleans Saints. It's almost like Eminem with a real Slim Shady, please stand up. Will the real New Orleans Saints please stand up? And like I said, I don't want to sound like this. Like, I don't want anybody just to think that I'm just doing this for dramatics. I'm not. I do not know what team I'm going to get from a week-to-week basis from the New Orleans Saints. If Tyson Bagent comes up in there and lights up the New Orleans Saints, it wouldn't surprise me at all. If the Saints go out there and catch 3 interceptions off him and sack him 4 or 5 times, I wouldn't be shocked. Because it is such a mixed bag when it comes to this team. So nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me. Like they say, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new when it comes to this team. You pretty much feel a mixture of emotions every time you watch this team. It used to be a time where, you had this type of matchup. You was like, okay, man, let's go ahead and get this dub and move on and see where we at next week. I can't do that now. I can't. Like, I don't know what to get. I mean, honestly, it's such a mixed bag. The Saints settle for too often for other teams' garbage and injured players and act like they can revive those players' careers. To be honest with you, I just think, once again, that goes back to the arrogance of this team. Like, Sean Payton, back in the days, I always use the example of my grandmother going to garage sales, right? She'll go to garage sales on Saturday and she'll just pick out like different things. And she'd be like, I can use this. This can go in the living room. This can go in the den, and it's always funny. Like, when she used to ride the van, and sometimes like my grandpa would like see her coming down the street because, you can actually see her riding. And he's like, I know they're going to have a bunch of stuff up in here we don't need. But all jokes aside, but she always finds ways to use it. And I feel like Sean Payton is the same way. Like, Sean Payton, to see his greatness, right? Look what I can do with this guy. Like, you couldn't use him in the right way, but look, watch how I use him. It was a level of arrogance. And like I said, I think the Sean Payton arrogance, it has rubbed off on this organization, and it comes down to them making decisions. Because the decisions that they make is almost like a person standing off against the wall while everybody dancing, right? I'm too cool to dance. You know what I'm saying? I ain't about to sweat out this $150 jacket. I ain't about to, I ain't about to get my $200 Jordan scuffed up. Y'all can go out here and dance, man. I'm gonna just chill on the wall and look cool, and everybody gonna see me. Y'all the ones that's gonna be sweaty. That's how the New Orleans Saints work. They stand in the background. Oh, yeah, y'all waste all y'all money. We good over here. And you go out there and you win one and you lose one and you win one and you lose one. And it's just, I just don't understand it. Like, I wish that I can actually see what the New Orleans Saints see when they making some of these decisions. Because right now they're looking like Shallow Hal. Anybody seen Shallow Hal with Jack Black? Everybody looked at people and were like, man, what's wrong with you, man? You really going out with this? But he only he thought he was looking at beautiful, hot women, like, like that's how the Saints are to be. Like, they have this false sense of what is, and everybody around them is looking like, hey, you sure about that, man? You sure you don't want to make a trade? And Chase Young might be pretty good, but the Saints, on the other hand, are just kind of just looking like, yeah, we'll be all right. I hope you're right, but from what I've seen, I doubt it very highly. Let's see. Completely feel you, TJ. I'm neither high or low on my Saints. Like, I just watch the games. I just watch the games, man. I watch the games with very little to no emotional investment because, I don't know what I'm going to get. When they score touchdowns, of course, I cheer because I'm happy, but I don't just sit up there like if they, if a team facilitates a comeback or something like that. Like, I'm not just sitting up there throwing stuff like how it was when it was winning consistently. Facts. I don't know what the Saints going to do on game day anymore. And honestly, I don't care. As long as it with them ending with a W. Yeah, I don't care either. As long as they win, that's the most important thing. I just hate when they just slip all over themselves. I just don't like that. Linda Edwards, super strong arm, and he's a great athlete, and he's just old now. Plus, he was never developed properly. Yeah, look, oh man, I just look at this team. I look at what they can actually do, and they have so much promise, man. But it's just up and down for me. Make sure you take a blood pressure med when the Saints play. Yeah, I mean, when Drew Brees was the quarterback, maybe I had to take one, but not these days. Hey, TJ, Dennis the Weasel Allen and Pete Goof Troop Carmichael don't have an ounce of sense of urgency at all in turning the team around and in a winning product for real, and they need to get fired. Look, I just think that when it comes down to it, there's levels to this. And like I said, they'll provide you with some false hope, but it's going to come down to, can you be able to execute consistently? And I'm just questioning that. You know, like we all had these conversations about the Saints, like, oh man, look at the games right now. I mean, they playing Tyson Bagent, don't have to play Justin Fields. Then you're going to most likely be playing Josh Dobbs or Jaron Hall with Minnesota. And everybody like, oh, you know, like you should be on a 3-game winning streak before the bye, right? I mean, but who honestly, like seriously, who honestly believes and sits up here and say, man, we gonna win all 3? And not, I'm talking about like really confidently say we gonna win all 3 without any thought in the back of your mind, like, I can see the Saints losing one of these games. Like who can confidently say that? I can't. Like theoretically, like based on the situation, yes, they should. But these are the Saints that we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. These are the Saints. Let's see, our roster has been set for day one. Mickey has done a wonderful job with his roster. All haters continue to hate. There is no room on the bandwagon. On this roster has been set from day one. Mickey has done a wonderful job with the roster. All haters continue to hate. There is no room on the bandwagon. Well, look, do the Saints have a collection of players that can generate success? Absolutely. But the fact to sit up here and just say that they have everything figured out, I would have to disagree with that. I think we all know that they probably need a little bit more help on the defensive line. You got Cam Jordan, he's getting up there in age. You paid Carl Granderson. Brian Brzee looks like he's the real deal, but he's still figuring it out. You need somebody that can be able to attack, right? Opposite of what Carl Granderson is doing. And you got to be able to get pressure on a quarterback. I feel like if they was to get like a pass rusher, it would have helped them out tremendously. But I mean, Mickey Loomis, for the most part, you know, he brought in some really good, talented players. But to sit up here and just say that the Saints just got it all figured out, when you see teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, who only had one loss, still trying to get better, when you see like the San Francisco 49ers, even though they dropped 3 straight, still one of the best teams in the league, still continuing to get better and not just satisfied with, oh, we got it. It just makes you just wonder, like, where teams' priorities are. Like, are you just content and okay with just having a couple thousand people in here to buy your merchandise and buy popcorn and, you know, maybe keep it competitive just for them to walk out and say, my team gave it its all? Or are you one of those teams like, man, I'm not satisfied with this. I want a championship contender. I want these people to buy the merchandise and buy the popcorn, but I also want them to know that they about to see their team dominate for 60 minutes. I mean, come on, man. Where do you sit? I have never been content with being complacent. Like, I'm always thinking about ways of making things better. Like, I feel like when it comes to the State of the Saints podcast, and I'm blessed to this, we have so many different people that tune into this show. I know more than likely if I press live, people are going to come and check this out. But I never take that for granted. I never do. I'm always thinking about what more can I bring to the listener and viewer experience. If I just sit up here and be like, well, let me go ahead and start talking, and that's all that's on my mind, and I get away from here and I'm not thinking about it until the next time I do this, then I'm not doing anybody a service. I'm not doing myself a service. I'm not doing you a service. And if you are just content with what you actually have in here, even though right now what you have in here has only generated you a 4-4 record, then your priorities are messed up. You should always be aspiring to be better and finding ways to get better. It's just not about, oh, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to support my team and I love my team and they doing a good job and that's good enough for me. And like, knock it off. We're all here. We're all Saints fans. We're all Saints fans. If you just think that you support the team and every decision that they make, that makes you a fan, that's on you. I feel like I'm the biggest Saints fan around here, but I'm going to question what I see, especially if what I'm seeing is supposed to be generating success. There is not a person that is watching this, that is listening to this right now, believes that the Saints should be 4-4 at this stage. And anybody that feels like, oh, they know what they're doing and they got it all figured out with a 4-4 record, when you have played quarterbacks of the likes of Jordan Love, who has looked absolutely slow, Bryce Young, who has looked young and inexperienced, Gardner Minshew still was making plays, Baker Mayfield. You're sitting up here at 4-4 with Baker Mayfield, who is on his third team. You got Bryce Young, who is young and inexperienced, CJ Stroud, who is young and inexperienced. You Ryan Tannehill, who you beat, but still, you know what I'm saying? Look at the quarterbacks that you sitting up here playing, and you sitting here at 4-4. You ain't playing against Brady or Rodgers or Mahomes. So anybody that thinks that this team has it figured out, oh, I'm gonna support my team. They making the right decisions. I don't know what y'all talking about. Be quiet. You're out your freaking mind. Like seriously, there's always room to improve. There's always room to improve. And they could have done that. But I mean, I understand your enthusiasm and stuff, and it's okay to believe the team, but don't be, like I feel like it's well within members of the Who That Nation's right to question what they seen based on the fact that you had one of the easiest schedules in football. You played some of the most middle of the pack, borderline mediocre quarterbacks in the NFL, and you are only sitting at 4-4. Oh, yeah, and not to mention the quarterback that you spend $100 million on more times than not this season look about as pedestrian and mediocre as the quarterbacks that I just mentioned. So it's well within everybody else's rights to question what they're seeing from the New Orleans Saints. I appreciate the energy, but people deserve to question what the heck they seeing. That's all I'm saying. The New Orleans Saints should be held to the new standard, and that's not selling for mediocre players or coaches. Look, if them sitting on their hands during the trade deadline, first off, I just want to let this be known. I have no problem with them not making any aggressive trades. Like, seriously, I'm not one of those people that fall into the free agency frenzy in a trade deadline hype. I just think all that is just for like ratings and getting people talking on social media. I have no problem with them not making moves. But when I'm hearing the only move that you tried to make was a wide receiver that you don't even really need, I have to question that, right? I'm not mad. Like if you would have called up the Commanders and said, we would like to make a trade for Chase Young, what would it take? And they tell you and you be like, I don't know about that. Thank y'all. God bless. Good night. I'm okay with that. So, I mean, and I'm also okay with the Saints holding on to their draft picks and them like going into the war room and saying, okay, man, we got to try to replicate or get as close as we possibly can to 2017, and we're going to use these draft picks to do it. I ain't got no problem with that. I ain't got no problem with that at all. I mean, I don't want anybody to think that I don't, but at the same time, man, like, I'm just wondering, like, why are you going after Hunter Renfrow? It just makes me think that your priorities are kind of messed up here. And I understand that you know your team better than me, but I just look at this team offensively, and there's nothing on this team that I look at, and I look at the offense and be like, man, they not good enough. If anything, I feel like what they have on offense, they should be like one of the top 3 offenses in the entire NFL. I'm looking more at the defense. I'm still a believer. Anything is possible if you believe. We are a good football team if they just believe in themselves and play as one. When they play starts and as one, they can beat anybody. I'm going to be honest with y'all. This was why I'm saying the season can go 2 ways. Number one, this can be one of those things that we continue to have seen over the last couple of years, which is win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Or this can be actually the start of a run. And we've seen this before. We've seen when Matthew Stafford first came to the Los Angeles Rams and he struggled. He was throwing interceptions. He was not being on the same page with guys like Odell Beckham and Allen Robinson and all these other guys, Van Jefferson. He wasn't on the same page with any of these guys. And then all of a sudden, they start to get hot and they start winning football games, right? And they make it all the way to the Super Bowl and win it against the Cincinnati Bengals. We seen at the beginning of the season when Tom Brady first came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they struggled. And then all of a sudden, they had a bye week and they didn't lose a game after that, and they went all the way to the Super Bowl, even at the expense of the New Orleans Saints. So we've seen teams struggle when they have new quarterbacks, new regime. They struggle, but they seem to figure it out late. They start to get hot. They become one of the hottest teams in the league. They make it to the playoffs, and they win a whole freaking thing. So the Saints have just as much talent as those two teams that I mentioned. Talent just like the Rams had. Talent just like the Buccaneers had. So to say that they can't turn it around, if you combine the veteran quarterback that they have in Derek Carr, if you start to utilize what you have around him, if you minimize his weaknesses and amplify his strengths, then I think that you would have what it takes. You have a running back in Alvin Kamara. All you have to do is give him the ball in space. You have a guy that in Michael Thomas that is not afraid to go across the middle and make those tough catches to move the chains. You have talented, speedy, fundamentally sound receivers in Olave and Shaheed that can get you some big yards and make big plays. And defensively, you got one of the best defenses in football. So you have everything that it takes in order for you to get yourself out of this hole. The question is, can you? And there's no reason why they shouldn't, because once again, we talked about this. Based on the schedule that they have, based on the scenarios, and it's unfortunate for some of these these teams out here because they're losing key players at key positions, but it benefits the New Orleans Saints. So if you combine a weak schedule already with teams that probably thought they were going to start the season with one quarterback, ending with another, from Desmond Ridder being benched for Taylor Heineke, from Kirk Cousins being out for the season with a torn Achilles. You got Justin Fields out here with a finger injury. You got all these things working in your favor. Unfortunately, the injury gods have been cruel to these teams, but it's benefiting you to a point where you actually have a legit chance to turn your season around. So I can agree. You know, you have what it takes, and we've seen teams struggle at the beginning and be able to turn it around. But the question is, can you do enough? Can you do enough? And to be quite honest with you, I really honestly don't know. I absolutely believe they'll win the South, but we're completely outmatched by the majority of the teams in the playoffs. I don't know about completely outmatched. Look, if we talk about tail of the tape, like I said, if you were talking about player for player, the Saints match up with some of these teams. My biggest issue, once again, is situational football. When you have a coach that is like really good, that can make adjustments on the fly, even if they go into the locker room and the game plan they come up with just doesn't work, they can be able to make adjustments on the fly on the sidelines. Those are the biggest concerns I have. When it comes to talent, tail of the tape, I feel like the Saints can match up with any one of these teams. That's just the truth, man. But, you know, it all comes down to execution. Let's see. That's pushing it, TJ. I don't feel like I'm pushing it. I don't feel like I'm pushing it. I'm just telling you. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying that I've seen teams get quarterbacks, get like new players offensively, and they struggle at the beginning, and then they find success towards the end of the season. They start getting hot. Like, I'm not saying that this is going to happen to the Saints, but I'm just saying there's a possibility that this can happen because we've seen it happen before. I'm not saying, like, I know sometimes when people bring up scenarios, it's like, this is going to happen. No. What I'm saying is, if somebody feels confident that, oh man, they can turn it around, yes, it has happened before to give them that level of confidence. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just saying I've seen situations in which it has happened. Let's see. I expect to dominate these next few weeks to go into the bye. just as confident as any other team. Hold me to it. Look, nobody like this isn't the swine song state of the Saints here, right? Ain't nobody just sitting up here just wishing on the Saints' downfall. Like, everybody wants to see this team successful. I think everybody wants to see that. So, I don't think anybody's going to hold you to anything. Like, that's what fans and supporters of the team are supposed to feel like. But if they don't, I can understand that too. So I don't say just hold you to it. I'm not going to come looking for you and be like, man, they suck. Man, what Love Man at? You know what I'm saying? Like, what Love Man at? Like, what you heard what he said? Like, look, everybody should have like some support, some level of love still for this team, even though they've been really breaking our hearts as of late. So if you feel like they're gonna win, I mean, that's well within your rights, and I hope you're right. And even if you're not, I'm not gonna become looking for you. Like, I want to see them win. I want to see them as successful as any team in the league. Matt Stafford was holding the ball too long, and he got it together and won it all at the end. That's what I'm saying. Like, everybody, like we've seen situations like that before. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it can happen. Man, if DA drops the ball this season and not make the playoff, go after Jim Harbaugh. I agree with that. Or go after a coach that's competent. Wasn't talking about the trades. I was talking about we got to stop selling for mediocre players and coaches like Pete and Dennis Allen. I agree with you on the trades and not getting pickups. Well, I understand. I get you, Trail. Yeah, I agree with you. You got to just go for guys, that just like fit a certain mold. Like, sometimes it's better to just go with the best player. And the Saints, they're really keen on system type players, right? Long wingspan, 6'6", 6'7", right? But that long wingspan ain't getting to the quarterback, right? I mean, that athletic ability only just getting pushed back to the sidelines. Like, how about just going with the sure thing? I just never understood that. Like, if people are like, man, he don't fit the system. Like, make the system fit him. Like, if a player is a difference maker, why aren't you adjusting your system to that particular player? Oh, we can't run that. Yes, you can. If you're going to sit up here and adjust your system for a 10-year quarterback, you can do it if you really want to, right? If a player is good enough and you feel like they're worth the investment, why not? That's why when, we were lobbying for, other players that like had that hybrid type pass rush. And I would hear people say, well, he don't fit the scheme. Well, make the scheme fit him. Because that's what you do at the quarterback position. If a quarterback has a big arm, you go out there and you get speedy guys that can run underneath the football. Right? If a quarterback is more of a play action guy, you go out there and try to get yourself a bruising running back that can get you 5 yards a clip. So if you're doing those type of things, why can't you adjust for players that can possibly be generational talent in your organization for years to come? Like, that's something that I just can't accept. Like, he don't fit our system. Like, if that player good enough and he getting a quarterback on the ground 2 and 3 times a game, you make it work. And that's it's too much of that. Like, just because your system is tailor made for a 6'7", 265-pound guy, it don't mean that you have to get every 6'7", 260-pound guy you see. Like, man, I know it's not always about where school you go to and stuff like that, but I don't know. If you have a player that averaged double-digit sacks in college, never got hurt, and he goes to a power conference school, more times than not, you're probably going to have some success with that guy. Versus a guy who probably, had minimal success at a mediocre school, a school where you basically have to use Wikipedia to find. Like, come on, man. Like, how about just going with the sure thing and adjusting your system accordingly? I mean, sometimes like it ain't that hard. I feel like, that's kind of the narrative that the Saints have been providing us, is that they think too hard, right? They try to overthink everybody. They try to outthink everybody, when the solution is about as simple as 2 + 2. That's 4 for some people that don't know. No cap, no filter, and that's an even bigger issue for real. That's exactly why the Broncos are bad now. Let me see what No Cap No Filter said. He says we don't have mid-round picks. We need our picks for next head coach to utilize to move up if need be and get his quarterback. I agree with that. And that was on my mind too, No Cap. That's why I mentioned this on X, formerly known as Twitter. I said probably the Saints not making any moves and not willing to relinquish any of their draft picks is more telling than anything. What I meant by that is the reason why, they wouldn't even, consider that or really strongly consider that really just tells you like they're really possibly thinking about making some tough decisions at the end of the season, which I don't think any of us have an issue with if this season, basically gets turned upside down, which in some cases it has. I'm speaking facts. Can't say you're speaking facts until it actually happens. I don't know. I don't know about, if you're saying that I can see them winning, that's like, you're making a prediction. If they win, then you can say that's a fact, all right? Because you said that they won. But everything right now, everybody is saying for the most part is pretty much opinion. Even me, you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying right now is opinion stuff. There's some truth through the stories that I'm telling, but my thoughts and everybody else's thoughts for the most part are opinions. But is our system good though, or is it just one that we run due to a lack of play calling creativity? What are we talking about here? We talking about offensively or defensively here? I mean, because the name of the game defensively is to neutralize the offense. Like, so I don't know exactly what side we talking about here. Where are we going with this? As far as what we're saying, are we good or not? Because, I mean, as far as the offense, I mean, they still leave a lot to be desired. They putting up big numbers, but it still leaves a lot to be desired. Boy, if we lose to the Bears, Mickey better be in the tunnel with D.A. Pink slip. I agree with that one. You can't lose to the Bears, man. Crime, the Bears beat us with a backup quarterback. We have a real problem. I mean, how many times have we seen that before, though? But we'll see, man. Hopefully they can turn things around. They still haven't figured out how to tap into the potential of Rashid Shaheed yet, TJ. Look, I think based on what you've seen last game with the three catches, 153 yards and a touchdown, if you don't have a game plan or have an uptick based on how Chris Olave has been playing as of late and how well Rashid Shaheed has been playing, I don't know what to tell you. And that goes back to what I'm saying. Like, you can't even utilize a guy with untapped potential, and yet you're trying to go out here and get Hunter Renfrow. Why? So he can get his one catch just like he did in Vegas? I mean, I'm just wondering, man. Mickey is no dummy. He know if DA can't get it done with the silver platter, this is perfect. Time to start new staff regime and get a quarterback. First team in division with quarterback head coach marriage will win division a lot. Yeah, I mean, look, that's a smart decision if that's what Mickey is doing. And like I said, I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. And like I said, it speaks volumes at them not being as aggressive. Because to me, if they actually 100%, believed in Dennis Allen going forward, I think Chase Young went for a third-round pick. I believe the Saints would have used that second-round pick to get him. I believe that. I mean, if they felt like that, I honestly feel like if they had a coach in place and he felt like this was the coach that can be able to take this team somewhere consistently, I think he would have made that decision. But of course, if you start giving up draft picks and all that kind of stuff and you're trying to hire a head coach, it may make your organization look less appealing. But if you got a first round pick, a second round pick, and you got a few more draft picks in the mid rounds, I think it makes it more appealing. And not to mention, you still have talent on this football team that can make a future head coach excited about coaching the guys. So there you go. Brian, that's 06. Game was hard for me. I dressed out and refused to take my clothes off till the Thursday afterwards. TJ, I was thinking the same about the quarterback thing. I would have had a move, but at the same time, no move is good for the future quarterback, which should be priority. We also have not fully use our weapons because of quarterback. Well, I'll tell you what, this quarterback class that they have coming out is one of the deepest in a very, very long time. So I would just hate if this season just gets flipped upside down and it's pretty obvious that you're not going to win anything with Derek Carr to try to save face and try to protect him and make him feel good. You just decide to go in a different direction. Like, I feel like, to me, that would be one of the biggest mistakes that the New Orleans Saints have made since they decided to go with Marcus Davenport instead of Lamar Jackson. Like, that would be like one of those situations. TJ, the coaches know the dogs off them with the coach win. Let's hope they don't revert back to whatever wasn't working before last week. Yeah, I mean, look, the pressure is off, right? I mean, man, a lot of people is coming for the necks of the head coach and GM and offensive coordinator. And now, they won. And now you have people out there that's telling us that, now they won. Watch out, what y'all complaining about? People just want to see consistency. That's all they want. People want to see consistency. People are tired of the up and down. People are tired of, like, the emotional roller coaster. Like, and people are tired of that. Like, just think about that, man. Somebody telling you they love you one minute, and the next thing they treat you like garbage the next, right? You don't know what to feel. You don't know if you loving this person unconditionally, or you need to pack your bags and go. Like, it's that type of mixed emotion when it comes to this team. And people sick of it. Like, and they get sick of it is because it's not warranted. It's not warranted. That's the worst thing in the world, man, when something is happening to you and you just feel like it shouldn't even be happening. Like, this team is too doggone good to be sitting up here at 4-4 and us to be having conversations about what they should be doing going forward. Like, the Saints should be in a conversation of who's going to be one of the top teams in the NFC. What seed the Saints are going to have. That's where they should be based on the talent that they have in there. If you combine the young players with the veterans, the leadership that they have, the guys with the playmaking ability, there's no way in the world we should be sitting up here wondering what's going on with our favorite football team. And the fact that we're actually at this particular point is a doggone shame. But once again, I mean, they won last week, 511 yards of total offense. I'm not going to poo-poo on that. I know some people, like, they try to dismiss that and say, it was against the Indianapolis Colts and their defense slow. Look, their defense may be slow, but here's the reality. Shouldn't they have done that in the first place? They should have done it, right? If your team is playing against a team that is not very good offensively or defensively, you should win the football game. Right? If you can exploit the side of the ball that they lack, you should win the football game. So, I mean, because when they lost to the Houston Texans, like, man, I can't believe they lost to the Texans, right? I mean, everybody was talking about how terrible they were. I mean, you beat a team that's on, a team on the brink of finding success beat you. And if the Indianapolis Colts would have did that, then everybody else would have just been like, man, they suck. Well, you can't have it both ways, right? I mean, it just seemed like to me you already just basically came up with your mind. If they win, then it don't matter because they played the Colts. If they lose, I can't believe they beat the Colts. So you should be excited about the game. You should have like a careful, like you got to be very, very careful in your thought pattern when it comes to the team, right? Don't just sit up here and just throw all your eggs in one basket and be like, we're going to the Super Bowl after a win against the Colts. I mean, you should be cautious about, embracing this team again in 2023. You need to see a little bit more. I can understand that, but don't just sit up here and just say, oh, they beat the Colts, because if they would have lost to the Colts, then the energy would have been different too. So they couldn't win for losing. That's right, TJ and Who That Nation. Me and No Cap have a nice live stream on this channel, and he did well. Yeah, well, shouts out to No Cap, man. Shouts out to everybody here, and shouts out to No Cap on this channel. Let's see. Derek Carr is just adjusting to our city. Just watch after we get on this winning streak, and he feels the support of the city. Look, all I know is this. They paid him a lot of money for him to come here to provide really strong quarterback play. I feel like the city will embrace him. if he starts winning, I always say, look, if you love New Orleans gonna love you back. If you show disloyalty to New Orleans, they'll never forgive you for it. That's the reason why every time Anthony Davis comes into town, they boo him out of the building. And that's the reason why when Reggie Bush walked down the French Quarter, people still chanting his name. They still remember him bringing that bat out and providing that magical game versus the Arizona Cardinals in the divisional round. If you love New Orleans, they will love you back. If you show disloyalty or you have this I'm better than you type mentality, they will never forgive you. And no matter what you do, you'll never absolve it. The best thing about Derek Carr is the fact that he got it early, right? He understands the energy, and he was able to kind of adjust on the fly, and people are willing to forgive. Like, oh yeah, football is the game of emotion. This guy here, we understand it probably, worked for you there, but it's not going to work here. It's kind of, that's just the way that it goes, right? Everybody gets a little slap on the wrist a little bit for, doing something, like grandmama see you out there, acting up, like slapping on the hand a little bit, right? Just to get your attention. But you do that again, and the next thing you know, I mean, the consequences may be very, completely different. So I don't know. Like I said, I mean, maybe he will get it together, maybe he won't. But all in all, like yelling on the sidelines and all that kind of stuff like that at fan favorites and players that these Saints fans love and that has been there before you, like I already told you, you can't be the new guy coming in trying to tell everybody where to sit at in the classroom. Not happening. Hey, man, this is my chair, this is his chair. Look, they had an empty chair out there for 3-4 weeks, right, in the back. You go sit back there, right? But you go there, you establish yourself, and then you move on to the next grade or something like that, to the next class. You might be able to sit where you want. You might be able to tell somebody, hey, man, sit next to me. But right now, man, you're the new kid that nobody knows in the back of the classroom, right? And the teacher basically telling you to come up there and tell us a little bit about yourself. So people still try to for being here. Appreciate it. Brandon says, TJ, we all know we have an easy schedule. However, how do you feel about potentially, if we get this thing going to the playoffs without being tested against a legit contender besides the Lions? Well, look, I don't care. I mean, look, you play the teams that are on your schedule. So that's just the way that it goes. And honestly, I've seen this before. I've seen teams have a relatively easy schedule, get into the playoffs, get hot, because they believe, they start buying into the success. They start buying into what they're actually doing. So, look, man, you do what you have to do. You beat the teams that are on your schedule. Like I'm not celebrating no harder if the Saints beat the Minnesota Vikings if they was to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. A win is a win, right? I mean, that's just the way that it goes. I mean, some wins are bigger than others, but at the end of the day, it all equals a W and one win. So go with the teams that are on your schedule, knock them off, beat them, and keep it moving, and start stacking up these wins. And then you'll find yourself, making a postseason, and then you figure out how you're going to be able to attack the Eagles, how you're going to be able to attack the Lions, or even though you're playing the Lions this season, how you're going to attack maybe the Seahawks or some of these other teams out here. That's what you do. Don't win, so we got to start winning. Scroll down. It says the BS is a 10-year vet. He has earned the right to say run. Y'all act like he cursed Olave out Brady style. Well, here's the thing. Nobody has a problem with him doing it. It's just the fact that, dude, you don't go here, dog. And then on top of that, while you was up here like going after the dude, you were playing like slow too. That's like me going to the store with you and Dark Side and be like, okay, man, let's go to this store. All right, cool, Dark Side, let's go. We walk to the back. You start putting candy in your pockets, right? You start filling your your pockets up with candy. Then all of a sudden, I started following your lead and I started putting candy in my pocket too. And you like, oh no, you can't steal. Wait a minute, what you doing? What are you doing? Like, you up here with a hand, like a pocket full of candy. I can't, you know what I'm saying? But if I take it, then I'm wrong. Derek Carr was playing terrible in that game, man. He was. And at that particular point, like, man, look, you can't tell me how to be a devoted and loving husband if you cheating on your wife. You know what I'm saying? You can't tell me how to be a devoted and loving wife if you cheating on your husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that. Like, how? What are we doing here? You're not leading by example. That can come off like you think you better than me. And guess what? I'm not listening to you. That is not registering in my mind because I see that your shirt tail is slipping. I see you not on the up and up. Bro, you got to be on it, right? If you was out there, you threw for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns, and let's just say the defense wasn't playing stellar that day, and you know what I'm saying, and you just in his nip and tuck, and you needed that play in order for y'all to take the lead, I can understand. Like, man, dang, you threw for 300 plus. Man, you balling right now. You know what? You right, man. I'm sorry, man. I let you down. But, dude, you just threw a pick 6. What are we doing? Like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? What the hell that song say? Sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine. It's a classic song, by the way. I encourage everybody to check it out now. But seriously, man, you can't tell nobody how to play if you ain't out there playing and balling out yourself. No. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Of course I'm going to act like that because you ain't living up to the standard either. Like, you talk, like, come on, man. You got to look at yourself in the mirror too now. But thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. I appreciate the love and support. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hope everybody enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed giving it to you. Also, you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, which is TJAY Jones 8. And also, you can check out previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. And also, you can check out HNSN. That's HNSN. Download the HNSN app, and you'll be able to check out episodes of the State of the Saints podcast, right? So thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. And I guess, let me see. His Dark Side says, if I'm stealing candy, which is wrong, but I'm telling you to keep the car running, and I come out and you're standing outside the car with the engine off. Well, look, I mean, here's the thing. You know, was I part of this operation? You know? Nah, but all jokes aside, look, I understand that scenario. That's kind of different, right? But what I'm saying is, if I'm doing wrong, if you're doing wrong and something I'm doing wrong, how can you hold me accountable? That's all I'm saying. All right. But thank you all so much for checking out the show. Have a good morning, noon, night, whenever you're checking out this podcast. And like always, all I got to say is, who that?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.